Hi, Josh Apple here with the Raspberry Golf Academy. Today I'm at Virginia Golf Center, and I'm going to talk about a question that I get a lot, which is ball position. In my hands I have 4 different clubs, and all 4 are going to have slightly different ball positions. Now there are some people who teach it should be the same with every club, but I'm a little different, and I think that every club should be slightly different with each ball position. So the first club I have here is a 60-degree wedge, a lob wedge, and with this club it's going to be a little more back in your stance because the club tends to lean a little more forward. When I sit this club on the ground, see how it tends to lean more forward? So when I go to a pitching wedge, it's still slightly back in your stance, but a little less so. So when I go to a pitching wedge, it leans forward, but not quite as much. So by the time you get to a 7-iron, it's much more vertical, so that means it's going to be very center in your stance. And then by the time you get to a 4-iron, now it actually slightly leans back, so you can see how that would be slightly forward in your stance. So I'm going to briefly set up to each club so you can see the difference. So when I take a lob wedge and put it flat in my palm like this, you can see that lean forward I was talking about earlier. So if I set it that way and have the hands in the middle of my body, certainly the ball will be slightly back in my stance. So anytime I'm setting up to a full swing with this club, I have that look where the ball is behind center. Now if I'm hitting a pitch shot or a higher, softer shot around the greens, certainly I'd move it more forward in my stance. I'd look more like this for a high pitch shot. But what I'm talking about now is for more full swing, so it would be more back in your stance with that look. When I lay a pitching wedge flat in my palm, it leans forward, but not as much as the 60-degree wedge did. So it'll still be back in my stance, just not to the same extent as the lob wedge was. So set it down on the ground the same way it was on my palm. And now when I go to set up with my hands in the middle of my body again, it will be behind center, just not as much as the last club. Just barely behind center. With the 7-iron, when I lay it flat on my palm, it's very vertical, only a really minimal lean forward, so that's going to be very center in your stance. Your most centered stance, ball position, is your 7-iron. Again, my hands are in the middle of my body, and now with the shaft lean, it's right in the middle of my stance. By the time you get to a 4-iron, if you put it in your palm, it actually leans slightly backwards. So again, hands in the center means the ball position is now forward, just slightly. You can see with the 4-iron, it's just a little bit in front of my stance. So I had my hands in the same position with all 4 clubs, but my ball position changed simply because they're all built differently. So use that next time you play golf, and hopefully you'll see a little more solid contact. I'm Josh Apple, and that's your tip of the day.